Hi, so this is possibly the most prescient episode of Black Mirror until we get virtual people created from our Facebook feeds, at least. And yeah, prescient in the sense of how accurate it was in some ways to the 2016 presidential campaign. A lot of people were trotting out, the fact that this existed during that, and I can understand why, totally. It's very weirdly apt in certain places, and hindsight's 2020. We can look and draw those parallels, but remember, someone predicted this. That's the creepier element to me. But I do think it's good to start with Gwen. She's very much an idealist, in the sense that she wants to do something, she wants to make change, she wants to do good. Yes, it's a stepping stone. She admits that, at least to herself and the party. She's not going to admit it to the public because, of course, that would sour public opinion. So, kind of understand it, whilst I may not agree with it. But still, she at least acknowledges it to herself. And I think it's good, that we show her, this idealist, this one who just wants to do some good, wants to be a politician and actually enact some change. But she's under the shadow, really, of the party, and we do see that more later when, she's forbidden almost pretty much from fraternising with Jamie. Who himself really is under a shadow. In his case, it's Waldo, and to a lesser degree, the producer, played brilliantly and sleazily by Jason Fleming, who just doesn't want him to change, doesn't want him to create anything new. Waldo's what gets the ratings, and that's what matters right now. The ratings are important. You will not get a spin-off like live sketch show with other characters because we're not funding it. It may be great, but this is the problem. When things are popular, when things are making money, people don't change, people don't stretch themselves. But creatives often want to do that. We often want to do something different. We want to stretch our creative muscles, if you will, and do something unusual. There's a great song by the Decemberists, the singer addresses his audience, where it's like, we know we belong to you, but we have to change. We've got to change, we've got to evolve, and unfortunately, people want the change, but they want things to stay the same as well. We're a wonderful contradictory species. But like I say, that's where Jamie's at, that's where Gwen's at the start of the episode. Both want something new, both want to do something worthwhile, both are not able to because of, various pressures. And I do think their parallels are quite important in a way, because of how it shapes their later interactions and how they sort of come closer and then drift apart. But I did think this was great to follow on from White Bear, because both involve sort of in dragging the populace in, if you will, to get them on side with what you're doing, really. In White Bear, whilst, it's about the punishment and dragging people in to partake in that, I guess. In this, you've got him sort of saying,
"Hey, you man with the pushchair. Yeah, you. Ask Mr. Monroe why he's ignoring me."
And, it's appealing to the hearts, not the minds. And that's the problem, I think, that exists in this episode. Waldo appeals to the emotional response, the gut response, the not the intellectual response at all. And, when the Western world recently was trying to tear itself apart, those same issues cropped up. We had experts saying, no, really, this isn't a good thing. But people were like, it was like high school again, slapping down the nerds. And weirdly enough, these people were probably those nerds in high school who were slapped down and went on to study well and get these kind of expert positions. I don't know. Anyway, this isn't a rant about recent politics. No, this is about an episode. Although I think politics is quite important, obviously, given the context of the episode. So you'll forgive me, I'm sure. But Jamie's quite interesting as a force for change. In again, these Trump parallels, Jamie's interesting as a force for change because he's not a career politician. He doesn't have a party line to follow. But he's perhaps even more dangerous because he's not directly responsible. He's not directly the person who's going to be taking the role. Obviously, we found out at the end of the episode anyway, it wasn't ever going to be given to him. It was just shake things up. But he can sort of, through almost an apathy, enact change quite easily. Whereas with Gwen, she cares too much, both in the sense of wanting to do good, but she also cares too much about, obviously, her public image, how she's going to be perceived, public approval, and of course what the party says she should do. So while she may have ideas that she wants to make, she wants to make these changes, she wants to do these things well, she's not going to be able to with the same ease in the same way. So I do think it's quite interesting to sort of see, how that switches around, and it's a very interesting episode on the whole, because with that, with that and pretty much everything else I've said, what we're seeing is the pulling apart of the theatricality of politics. Because that's all politics is. If you look at it with an analytical eye, you just see it's just a stage show, basically. It's performance, it's theatre. Political theatre. That's all it is. Strip away the parties. Strip away what they stand for, or what they say they stand for. Strip away the colours they associate themselves with. And you basically get the same thing. Very recently, I'm preparing in a couple of weeks to vote in a by-election. Possibly by the time this is out, it's already done. I hope we did right. I hope we did good. But, I keep getting the things through the post, and it's all like, they're all saying the same thing. We want, to secure jobs. We want to make sure the Brexit's as good as possible for the area. We love the area. They all say that. We don't want the NHS split up and sold off for parts. They all say the same thing. They all say that the others are saying something different as well. And this episode really puts that into a wonderful, under a spotlight, and says, look at it, just look at it. The parties are the same. Politics is the same. It's always going to be a group of people going, I think we should do this. And you'll have the debates and you'll have the votes. And, as I say, 99% of politics and politicians are exactly like this. And then you get a Waldo, or a Trump, or to a degree, a Corbyn, who doesn't do everything that a politician's meant to do. And you start to understand how people can get behind this. You start to understand how people can see that, hey, I never noticed how much like this was pretty much just we're going on a treadmill, or even worse, on a hamster wheel. We think we're making progress, but it's just coming round again. We're doing this, and yeah, we need something different. We need something like that's not the same. And I do think it's great. It's Trump, Waldo, perfect candidates because they remove the usual trappings. This, like I say, the theatre of politics. They remove it, and that's what people want. Again, this idea that people actually do want change. It's highlighted in the this conflict is highlighted in the fact that they want Waldo. They don't want that to change because that's funny, but they want change in the political field because he does get the majority vote at the end of the episode. And I think it's great. It's rallying people to the cause is great. So, I mean, what Jamie does well, I think, though, is he tempers it with morals. He's like, I don't want to just get people on side and just get them to agree with what I'm saying, just for a laugh. I want to temper it with a moral standing. I want to make sure that I'm not encouraging people to do things I don't agree with. We obviously see when Jason Fleming gets control of Waldo, he's like,
the first man to hit him gets 500 quid. Yeah, that's right. Knock him down. Knock him down. Smash it. Yeah.
He has no morals. He's just like, where's the funny? How can I get like people on side? And it's kind of dangerous. Now, I've kind of not touched on it really, but sort of towards the middle of the episode, we do see an American guy coming across saying, this is a great political force. I mean, yeah, it's not going to work. It's not, you're not going to get voted in. Although technically he was. It's just that obviously they can't have a virtual MP. But he says, we could make this global. We could take this around the world, and it could be this whole idea of people having this change to politics. He even acknowledges it. Even himself. He's like, people want this difference. People want this change. And did this episode encourage something like Trump to happen? We don't know. It's believable. But I found it interesting because I totally forgot that this had like a sort of denouement, if you will, an epilogue. Sort of with the credits where, every country seems to be showing something Waldo based. Waldo has become this political force for change across the world, even if it's not actually doing anything good, but it's getting people to get behind just change as a general idea. Don't have the usual trappings of politics. And of course, Jamie's just destitute and homeless and just so fed up of seeing Waldo's face. And it's quite sad, you know. I think it does become the case for some people. You know, their creations completely overshadow them and overpower them, and become too much, and they just snap. You know, they can't deal with it. They either disappear into obscurity, or, you know, go homeless, or even die. And it's not great. You know, so I think this is a very interesting episode on multiple levels. It gives us a lot to think on. You know, not only on you know, how predictive it was, but also, you know, how, yes, change to the political scene is good, and also the sympathy for being stuck under your own creations. You know, maybe that's an issue Charlie Brooker had. Maybe he felt people were constantly saying, hey, you're the Black Mirror guy. Maybe there's an element of that in it. I don't know. But until next time, as always, take care.